Ubisoft reportedly canceled an Assassin's Creed game that was set during the Reconstruction era in America. It was going to feature a black assassin who fought against the KKK. And ultimately, it was canceled because of the modern political climate of the United States right now and the Yasuke backlash from Assassin's Creed Shadows. This comes from the great reporting of Stephen Totillo at GameFile. I've left a link in the description below. You can read a little bit or sign up for a free trial to get the full article, which I encourage you do. So I just want to talk about this idea, why it sounds so incredible to me, and why I'm disappointed that it's not going to happen. First off, let's talk about this setting. So Reconstruction in the United States is 1865 to 1877. This is post-Civil War era, and according to this article, this game was also going to have bits, set during the actual Civil War. Our character would have moved west in order to seek out a new life in this new version of America, but then met the assassins and been recruited to go back down south and fight off, presumably, the Templars who are involved with the Ku Klux Klan, which makes perfect sense, by the way. Like, what better organization could you think of throughout history that would absolutely be Templar involved? It's the KKK. The Templars are all about using religion and other, sociological ideologies in order to further their plans. And I just can't think of a better, real historical organization for them to draw from and put the Templars in. I think this could have been really cool. Looking at previous Assassin's Creed games, this is a time period that they haven't really explored. Of course, we had Assassin's Creed 3, which was around the American Revolution, but that is a full 100 years prior. I'm showing a bunch of footage of Freedom Cry because that was an excellent expansion for Assassin's Creed Black Flag that took place still during the golden age of piracy, 1730s, but dealt with some very similar themes. You were literally freeing slaves in Freedom Cry as Adewale. And if you've actually played this DLC, you can see the vision. Like, it's very easy to see how this could have been spun into an entire game. Assassin's Creed Liberation took place in late 18th century French Louisiana, and as Adeline, that game allowed you to use, I think, one of the more unique blending systems in this series. You actually swapped outfits. It kind of felt like a Hitman version of the notoriety system in the Assassin's Creed games, and it's actually aged pretty well. It's definitely worth a look. Now, Assassin's Creed Syndicate did take place during almost the same time period, but in London, during the Second Industrial Revolution, so very different context, but I wanted to bring that up because, when you think about all of these potential Assassin's Creed games, which seems to be like the favorite thing of every Assassin's Creed fan is to, dream up what perfect era could a future game exist in. You start thinking about like the technology, like what would the assassins use? What would the people be like? What would the setting be like? Syndicate is certainly an interesting parallel, but of course it would be way different because you've got this American flavor with all of this backdrop, and the fact that the main character is a former slave, a black man, would totally change the dynamic in this canceled game. Now, before we talk about why I think it's a shame that this is not happening, I do want to be realistic, especially considering my feelings on the current state of Ubisoft and how they're making Assassin's Creed games. This premise is so cool and so interesting, and something that I think would absolutely be relevant and hit home for a lot of people in today's day and age. But I have no confidence in Ubisoft's ability to actually pull this game off. Let's say that management, who ended up canceling this game despite all of the developers on it being really excited to make this thing, let's say they went ahead with it. I just don't see a reality of a modern Ubisoft game taking any risks with the formula, not shoving these absurd microtransactions down our throats, and not reining in the unyieldy size that these open world RPG games have bloated to. I mean, I just don't think it would have been a great game. They are too satisfied with the performance of the current formula, and I realize people do like this. Personally, I don't think it makes sense, and I don't think it works. I can imagine the map for this game, and it would span multiple states, and maybe there would be multiple maps, like one in the west where you meet the assassins, and then one down south where the bulk of the game takes place, and you're taking down the KKK targets who all work for the Templars. Plus, it would be banking on the success and the nostalgia of Assassin's Creed 3. People don't realize how much Assassin's Creed 3 sold. Before Valhalla, it was the best-selling Assassin's Creed title because it became after the Ezio trilogy. It was something different. And that time, period, that context, being an American set game, really resonated with people. Ubisoft actually did this and made a pretty controversial game with Far Cry 5 not that long ago. And that was also a really big success for them, tackling what a modern day cult in Montana would look like. And actually veering into the controversy. And, that is a wild game if you look at it, in a vacuum. No other company would make that kind of game. If you look at Ubisoft's track record, they have been the ones to make those edgier games with themes and societal issues that other publishers and developers wouldn't touch. And that brings me to what this reporting says about why it was canceled. They said, number one, because of the current political climate in the United States, which is really disappointing. I mean, how spineless do you have to be to cancel something just because a couple of people on Twitter are going to, say grifter tourist nonsense? They don't even play the games they're talking about. They're just trying to make people angry and, profit off of fear and anger, preying on the worst of us, our worst tendencies and thoughts, and weaponizing that. It's just disgusting. And the fact that Ubisoft, again, is bowing down to that because of Yasuke and what's going on right now is so disappointing for this medium. And if you believe that video games are art like I do, holy crap, this is a gut punch, a blow. Steven did update his article saying sources emphasized that the cancellation was more about anxiety over the politics in the US rather than the Yasuke backlash, which sucks because we all know that the anti-women, anti-black backlash in video games right now is just spun up by these grifter tourists who don't actually play the games, have no interest in them, and just say inflammatory things to prey on people's worst tendencies. Apparently, both of these things did factor into the decision. And yeah, I can obviously picture a world where this game coming out right now would just ignite these grifters. You know what I mean? Like, they would make videos, they would profit off of just this game for like years. But it got me thinking of other projects like this that delve into, this kind of territory. Like Mafia 3 is just an incredible example of not the best video game to play, but an incredible story that is so brave to tell that nobody else would touch with a 10-foot pole. I mean, Vietnam war vet coming back from war, getting involved with the mafia. It's a revenge tale, but also you're in, 60s, 70s Louisiana. And of course, these guys are racist. Like, that game is is incredible. That game could not be released today. It would get canceled just like Ubisoft canceled this one because of, quote, the current political climate. So I think what I'm trying to say is it's a shame we're not going to see this game set in an era of US history that is really just not explored at all. Even in school, we didn't talk a bunch about Reconstruction. I don't remember it very well. It's such a good setup. I mean, you could have started the game with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the end of the Civil War, and then kicked off from there. I mean, I can see it now. Like, John Wilkes Booth is a Templar coming in. Like, it's just so perfect. Kind of like the beginning and ending scenes of Assassin's Creed 3, where you see Haytham Kenway in the opera house. I mean, this stuff writes itself. And I think there's another angle we should talk about, which is the perspective of the developers. I did say earlier that all of the developers were on board. I obviously don't know that. There have been reports of the development and the backlash of Assassin's Creed Shadows really taking a mental toll on individual developers at Ubisoft and them having to seek therapy to deal with threats from people online just because they're making a video game about something that they don't agree with, which is, again, disgusting behavior that you can squarely pin on all of the people who are manufacturing controversy. I get it from a human angle, from an angle of we don't want to put our people in the crossfire. We don't want to put people out there who don't want to be out there to work on a project that's going to subject them to harassment by people online. I mean, that is a real thing. And if, I don't think that Ubisoft is so noble that they were like, we have to protect our people, so we're not going to make this controversial game. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think Ubisoft, given the troubles they've had in the last several years and rumors of being acquired and eventually having to sell a big, portion of their company to Tencent, that's obviously more in line, I think, with what's going on here. They just want to make big games that are just widely accessible to the biggest audiences possible. They have actually said that. But that's how we get games like Star Wars Outlaws that just have nothing to say, that just feel like a limp, wet noodle, like a piece of paper that you've drowned in the sink, like nothing, just zero interesting insight into humanity and how people actually act and believe. Contrast, Star Wars Outlaws with something like Andor. Andor especially confronts the Imperial side and the obvious parallels with fascism, right? Star Wars Outlaws says nothing interesting, and that's the kind of game that Ubisoft would prefer to make, and the sales speak for themselves with that one. But I do miss that era of Ubisoft game like Watch Dogs 1, like Far Cry 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like the early Assassin's Creed games that were all just like laden with conspiracy and veering into the controversy rather than playing it safe and lukewarm and everyone's going to enjoy this game. That's not the point from, my eyes. And I know that I am not a publicly traded company who can just make any artistic, choices that I want to for, in the name of creativity, right? So it's different because this is a business and businesses should be worried about their bottom line and they should make a profit. At the same time, according to these sources, a lot of people did want to make this game. And if that's to be believed, you could also believe that a lot of people were willing to work on something like this, even if it meant there was going to be backlash. Because you know what? That's the frickin' point of creating things, right? It is to challenge your beliefs. It's to get you thinking. The reporting says Ubisoft management canceled this game. The higher ups canceled this game, not the creatives with the vision for what this could be. The idea that games can't be political is hilarious when you look at the history of games. A lot of our favorite, best games are inherently political. And by the way, a game that addresses the real, actual realities of a racist organization in US history, the KKK, it didn't even need to be quote unquote political, right? This game didn't have to say anything necessarily about the KKK in particular. They just needed to be, the vehicle for the Templars to exert order over America. Similar to how the KKK are depicted in Mafia 3, that game is not just kill the racists, it's kill the people who killed your family and the people that you care about in your own black mob, take over the town, get revenge, right? That game has a disclaimer at the beginning that says we're dealing with very real themes that may make you feel uncomfortable, but guess what? That's what happened in history. Assassin's Creed is still a historical game that should be leaning into these things, like the historical reality that Yasuke was a real person in Japan, and then launching off from that point and taking creative liberty from that point. There is just so much potential for what could have been with this particular Reconstruction era Ubisoft game, and I think whether or not it was going to be a good game or not, it's just a shame that we're not going to be able to see it. Finally, I want to touch on two examples of games that leaned into the controversy and I think were rewarded for it. First off is Wolfenstein. Do you guys remember like the soft serve scene where it's really uncomfortable? You're playing as BJ Blazkowicz. They showed this, I think, at E3, Bethesda did. And they were like, yeah, no, Wolfenstein is about killing Nazis. And you're forced to like get this, soft serve and be in this very uncomfortable environment. Dude, that stuff is electric. And Wolfenstein 2 is probably not the best game. I don't think I enjoyed it that much. But guess what? You attack and take out Hitler, one of the biggest villains in the history of mankind, dude. Like, come on. The fact that that is controversial in today's day and age is, man, I do worry for our future. The other example is this Freedom Cry trailer. Ubisoft had no problem 11 years ago uploading this trailer, which lays it on a bit too thick, I will say. Obviously touching on very real realities here, but the way it's shot and sort of the tone and the vibe of this trailer, I don't know. I don't know if this was a good idea or not, but the sentiment of the video game that came from this project, right? Freedom Cry is fascinating, interesting, and Adewale obviously deserved his own standalone game. A bit sad that we did not get to see that. But yeah, it's a weird reaction to this news overall for me. It's a mix of disappointment and resignation and like, okay, well, of course, they didn't do this, but would I have enjoyed the game that came out of it? Maybe not, but that's not, at the end of the day, that's not really important for a game like this. If this game had something to say and something interesting, a different flavor and angle of a piece of history, I think it should have, been made. Anyways, a lot of ranting here. Let me know what you guys think about this potential game. Would you have wanted to see this Reconstruction era game? How would it have played in your eyes? Do you think they could have pulled it off? Are you sad about this? Are you happy about this? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. I also want to take this opportunity to shout out my second channel. I started a second channel for more, I would say, not controversial stuff, but stuff that I'm too scared to upload here because I'm, worried this is my job. I don't want to upload videos that don't work. And I uploaded an Assassin's Creed Shadows versus Ghost of Yotei video on the second channel, and it just blew up, and it blows my mind. I mean, this thing is like 5 or 6 times more successful than the video of me just playing Ghost of Yotei for the first hour and cracking jokes. And so it kind of opened my eyes to what I probably should be doing here. It's more content like this. So first of all, I'm going to link my second channel in the description. If you could go over there and subscribe and support me, I'd really appreciate it, especially if you're a regular viewer of this channel. And then second of all, let me know what you think about this video that you're watching right now. I don't know, man. I'm very tempted to just lean into stuff like this, commentaries with opinion on topics that I care about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like, a comment maybe, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Also ring that bell so you don't miss my next one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.